welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. We have a pretty valuable presentation, I think, this week in terms of the amount of businesses that are looking at centralizing their voice infrastructure, most of them after having successfully centralized their data infrastructures. That list is pretty high, and it's an area that we think we offer quite a bit. So we're going to kind of go through and look at what it means to centralize that voice part of it and why we think you maybe should consider us as one of the players to do that. You know, one of the things, if you're going to understand this, is you really have to understand the enterprise. And the terms we use in our industry, like any industry, you know, they're great placeholders, but they're not very precise. So we talk about SMB businesses, small, medium-sized businesses. We talk about enterprises. But all of those, they span a really wide range of various elements that you might have in an enterprise. So quite typically, enterprises, when we tend to talk about enterprise accounts, are larger accounts with at least hundreds and thousands and tens of thousands of employees spread across multiple offices, multiple states, multiple countries. And all of that becomes of immense interest when you do start thinking about centralization. And all of these companies grew organically. They didn't say, let's start a 25,000 user company today, and I'm going to go out to the store and buy all the right kind of software and systems so it all makes sense. They grew from acquisition and merger, and as a result, they have every kind of system and software out there you can imagine. And while they understand that might not be the most productive way to do it, the costs that are embedded into that infrastructure really limit them from being able to walk away from that. So when you're going to consolidate, you have to take that into consideration. The ability to deal with multiple players in every category is a very important piece. And, you know, enterprises don't really, as a whole, they don't get a lot of the marketing money, they don't get a lot of the focus, and as a result, you have to spend some time understanding who they are and what they want. And when I say that, I mean at each individual enterprise level. Enterprise 1 is completely different from Enterprise 2. Even if they're in the same industry, they're the same size, they have the same number of offices, what's underneath the covers is different. And it's all very complicated. Ask any IT person in a large enterprise, and they can regale you for hours with stories of how difficult it is to make things work in their enterprise because of the networks and because of the various ways equipment was connected and equipment was acquired and how they have to age out certain equipment. It's very difficult to be an enterprise. So when we talk to an enterprise in terms of consolidating their voice infrastructure, we need to be very, very conscious of that. If you talk to CEOs, they'll kind of start by saying voice, it's not the most important thing in my enterprise today, but we have to have it, it has to work, it has to be reliable, and we're pretty sure there's some serious economic gains if we can get this under control. If we can centralize this and instead of dealing with what we've acquired, actually have a strategy that makes sense for moving forward. But while they do that, they really don't want to throw away their investments they already have. Keeping that aging infrastructure even alive, if it makes sense financially and you can deliver what you need with that infrastructure, for a lot of people, it's a much better play than doing a rip and replace. The dream, you know, to get to the new consolidated single kind of architecture with perhaps a voice over IP phone system and all new UC, that dream is there, but it's kind of a let's step towards it as opposed to let's do a rip and replace to get there. Now what that means is when you're a large organization and you look at doing anything, and certainly this is true for consolidation, interoperability is one of the key points, if not the key point. You really need to be able to pick a direction that not only works with what you have today, without the vendor saying, yeah, I can give you that feature you want, here's all of the systems you need to replace, plus you want to make sure it works tomorrow. So if you're going to change out part of your voice infrastructure, your messaging part, unified messaging, find me, follow me kind of functionality, you want it to work in your environment today, but you don't want to limit yourself. You don't want to buy like this software suite that says, yeah, we have everything you want, but you have to go to our phone system, our presence client, our unified messaging engine, all of that. You really want to leave yourself open, and that's a key piece. So if you look at these sort of tenets of what you need to do consolidation in a large enterprise, the next question is, why would we think we should play in that market? Why are we going to you and saying, yes, if you're going to consolidate, you should talk to us? And We're not the best known name in the industry. We've never made anything that sat on the desk. We've always made things that work behind the scenes. But we've been doing it a long time, founded in 1982. By 1985, we were selling through both dealers and an OEM arrangement with US West. We've got over 20 million documented users. We probably have a lot more out there we don't know about. We have 3 offices today throughout the world that we service out of, and all of those offices support a huge chain of worldwide dealers. Wherever you are, we have trained and certified dealers with feet on the street. It's not the only way to deploy. You'll always go through a dealer, but dealers will also work arrangements where some of your IT people might be the first point of contact for issues, because a lot of larger enterprises want that. We are recognized in our market spaces as being a best-of-breed solution. If you go and get the Gartner report and you talk about unified messaging, they will say, be careful with the suite products, because when you buy a suite, you don't always get best-of-breed of everything. And if you want the best-of-breed unified messaging, go get a CXE system. They call us out by name. So we have been around a long time. And one of the beauties of us in this consolidation market is we have the broadest UC operability, bar none. No one, even our competitors, will challenge us on that point. And it has to do with how we've grown. We've never been owned by a switch vendor or a network router company. Our target has always been every user in the enterprise. So we want our dealer channel to be able to go knock on any door in any high-rise and say, look at all the wonderful things we can do for you, without having to present a list saying, look at all the things you have to upgrade in your enterprise first. You could have a very old network, a very old groupware package, a very old PBX system, and we can deliver all the functionality that we deliver in that environment without requiring you to go to new software, to load SIP on your servers, etc. So that interoperability is a key piece to look at when you're looking at tying your organization together. And because of the way we grew, we had a very good educational experience with the customers who grew along with us. You know, when we started off, we focused on businesses as an organic unit. We had voicemail, we had menus, automated attendance, and those are really focused at the business level. When calls come in, here are the things we need to do. Over the years, as mobility became more and more of a feature, plus a challenge, we started focusing on individuals. We started realizing that within the business we can set up a kind of a generic way of handling traffic, but individuals need something different. They need control. They need more flexibility. They need the ability to, during their day, choose which device they want to use at any specific time or location. So our mobility, our Find Me, Follow Me, our unified communications pieces are incredible at supporting any of those kind of architectures. And just in the last few years, we've realized that within the buildings, and maybe that's not fair to say, within the enterprise, there are groups of people who work together, and there's a lot of collaboration software out there that are focusing on these people. What there isn't very much of is a collaboration approach to the voice element, the call element. So you'll see in our product some new features that are actually all about supporting calls coming into teams. This isn't a call center. This isn't 1,000 agents doing the same process in a room somewhere. This is a group of maybe 10 people. Maybe they're project-oriented or department-oriented, and they're working together. They're already collaborating at a data level, and we're going to show you how to let them do some of that with voice as well. If you go back and talk to our customers, we'll look at a chart here and a few slides down. Why do they buy our solutions? One of the things is we can go into your organization today and replace your critical applications that are going end of support. That's a huge market. So many of the legacy systems that people bought, particularly in the voicemail and unified messaging area, worked fine for them. They haven't felt a need to replace them from a feature functionality point of view, but they are either not on a maintenance agreement at all, or they are on a best effort agreement that says, if that hard drive in that 20-year-old system breaks, yeah, we'll come out and look at it, but we can't guarantee we can fix it. So due diligence says some of that stuff has to go, and we are great with that for any number of reasons, not the least of which is since we were selling our product in that same era, we have all those features. We're the easiest system there is to move over to because you're not going to lose any functionality. So you can extend the life of the elements in your enterprise that you want to do while replacing and updating the ones that you have to do. As we look at companies doing this, the whole overview architecture piece is now something that maybe that's the first decision you have to make. Where do I want to put these pieces? Do I want to go with the traditional silo architecture still? Do I want to tie it all together into a personal network or a private cloud? Do I want to use the public cloud for some elements? Do I want to do a hybrid cloud? Those decisions are critical in terms of your long-term strategy for deploying a new architecture, and I'm happy to say we're going to be able to walk down that path with you and touch the various elements we need to in all of those kinds of environments. And then, while some of these opportunities for us in particular start with replacing a legacy system, keep in mind that legacy system you're replacing as you do this consolidation is also going to be the one that goes forward with you for the next 7 to 10 years. So you really want to be conscious of these new applications, and even if you're not planning on buying them right now, if you're solving a problem during consolidation and you want to say, yeah, just I want like for like right now, you better make sure that box that you're putting in there will give you the newer things which you're going to want next year or the year after, so you don't end up realizing that you wasted this by having to move again when you get down to this level of application functionality. So we talk and we brag, actually, about our interoperability out in the world, and we can stand up and defend it very easily. In terms of the product areas which we're in, no one has this kind of operability. We don't care what the call control element, what the PBX is. It can be anything. It can be the oldest Avaya ProLogic switch or a brand new Link 2013 enterprise telephony deployment. Everything we have works in any of those kinds of environments. We don't care whether you're Exchange. We do custom integrations with Exchange, Gmail, Notes, GroupWise, Office 365, but we also do a full range of standard-based implementations using IMAP, things along those lines. So whatever you have. Today we're just starting to actually use that presence engine to do things like control calls and build custom greetings. So today we're really in the Link camp first to get this out there, since that's the largest market space, but we intend to expand this out to include Google and standards-based ones as well. Calendars, you can see we already pretty much have what the enterprise has. And one of the things we do, particularly in a large enterprise, whether it's consolidation or just a replacement and upgrade, large enterprises have those unique needs, and we have custom tools. Probably 1 out of 4 of our large enterprise deployments has us write a small or even sometimes a large custom application. We have the tool set to do that. These things run on our platform. They leverage the existing pieces you're getting from us already, and they do all kinds of wonderful UC functionality. And in that world, once again, from an interoperability point of view, we're just going to ask you, if we're touching one of your data sources, just tell it what it is. We won't say, oh, we don't hook to that. We have that same level of connectivity. We have a wide range of interoperability in fax, but honestly, we just don't see much out there in an enterprise except for WriteFax, if it's an on-site type service. And we actually, in our history, we were the same company as WriteFax years ago. WriteFax and Call Express were both owned by a company called AVT years ago, and we split that company apart, but we maintain a really very, very tight connection to WriteFax. And then the mobile market is probably the biggest interoperability challenge today because of how fast it's changing and how much people want to do and how dangerous the IT department thinks it is to put anything out there like that that's not as well protected. So you'll find our mobile device strategy includes all of the standard players. Some generic things that work on the older platforms as well, but definitely brand new Android and iOS kind of applications. So as you look at consolidating, all those different pieces are something you need to take into consideration. And that's something that we do in terms of we make sure that as we build a new solution, both the architectural pieces we put in for, let's say, communicating to mobile devices, but also the functionality and support for client devices, give us that full range of functionality. So I'm going to go talk to a large enterprise. They're going to say, I have 5 locations. Today I have an older legacy PBX environment. Over the next 5 years, I'm going to be moving either to an IP telephony type or even perhaps going all the way to enterprise link. So I need to keep that in mind. But right now, I need to get these elements out there. And then we'll sit down and we'll start basically having a discussion, typically with, draw me out your network. Where are these pieces that we need to take into consideration? Is everything in a single site? Are you centralized that way? You have a private cloud where your own network is connected to various pieces that are out and about. Do some of your pieces live now, or are you planning shortly to put them in the public cloud? Contact center collaboration, some of those are very popular to move out. Email is probably the most popular right now. You need to make sure, as you look at consolidation, that the centralization piece you do can deal with all these elements. It isn't just a matter of taking out that legacy platform and putting something in that does what that legacy platform does in this new environment that you centralize. Because next year, as you start looking at all this other functionality, you really don't want to have to revisit replacing that platform because the one you picked only did the one thing you were looking at. So let's talk a little bit about what it takes to centralize. And for most people, we tend to talk about centralization and resiliency together because the more you tend to put in one place, or the more you centralize things, the more you're concerned about making sure that you don't have any points of failure in this larger set. So we're really great with any kind of resiliency at all. We're going to look at some of our architecture here in a couple of slides. But basically, as we centralize systems, we scale up to 752 ports, which is more than anyone else out there. And while a lot of people say, well, nobody would ever need that many ports, as you start rolling 10 or 15 enterprise sites together, that port count climbs quite a bit. We can take our single deployment here where we're going to centralize. You may not be ready to centralize your voice infrastructure, so we'll help you do that by putting components out at every PBX you have at a site and using those local components regardless of what those PBXs are. They can all be different, and we'll take and tie those all together into an integrated unified communication system. Later on, if you make the move to go to a centralized voice over IP infrastructure, we'll just move those components around to support that as well. So as we look at doing this, we have the tools to replace a legacy system like the alternate telephone user interfaces. We have the features like supporting users in multiple time zones effectively. We can do conflicting dial plans. All those pieces that kind of come up when you go to centralize are the things we've been dealing with for almost 30 years. If you look at the simpler customer that has a private cloud, meaning they've got a data center where they have most of their functionality, but they still have remote sites, and those remote sites still have a local call processing or PBX element, then we have the different pieces in our organization to be able to tie those together. And we do that in a number of different ways. We have a couple of pieces of software. We have first the system server, which is our brains. The system server is a centralized database, admin tool, diagnostic tool, etc. There's always at least one of those in a system, although there's quite often more than one. And that sits in probably your primary data center, and it's controlling all the other elements, which are called call servers. And call servers are the workhorses. They're the ones that connect to the phone system. They do all those wonderful integrations we refer to. They run all the applications. They record all the messages, play all the audio. And you can have up to 20 of those spread across your network, maybe one or two or even more at the various PBX sites. And this architecture ties it all together. Now, there's nothing stopping you from putting a system server and a call server and load both of those softwares on a single server. We support that. We support up to 144 ports that way. But typically, centralized, there's more concern about redundancy and reliability. So putting call servers on sites is a very advantageous way to go, because you have these remote sites and you don't want a standalone call processing system at each one. You want to gain that economy of scale and that lower total cost of ownership by having a single centralized system, which means you have to rely on your data network. And people tell me all the time that their data network is rock solid and that they have dual network paths everywhere they go. They have more than enough bandwidth. But at the same time, when I start describing, so what about Site 2 if you lose the data connection to it? Are you willing to not have the ability to answer phone calls on your call processing system? The IT people turn a little white and realize that would be a bad career decision probably to make that choice. So we can solve that. We can solve that by putting the call server element, which is survivable, out at each of those important remote sites. That's not a requirement. There's other ways to do it. If you have a dedicated IP PBX remotely and you just want to point that IP integration back to a call server at the main location, we support that completely, and we have customers that do that. But that site would be at the mercy of that data network. You could also put a Dialogic Media Gateway out at that remote site, which actually converts the older legacy TDM type integrations into SIP. And let's say you have we have a number of large healthcare organizations that have 10 or 11 hospitals and 50 medical clinics. And out of those medical clinics, they have like one rack in the back that has a gateway for the phones and just, very, very limited kind of data infrastructure. They don't have a data person out there. They don't want to put something out there that requires patches and upgrades. They can put a Dialogic Media Gateway in, connect it to their local phone system, convert that integration into SIP, and out it goes. And now you have a very low support model for those smaller remote clinics. Meanwhile, at the hospitals, where you really need to make sure that no matter what happens, you have active control elements, you can put call servers. It's not really a pricing difference. It's more of a maintenance and reliability issue. So we get to sit down with you with your architecture diagram and figure out what you have where and how you want to deploy the system. We have more options than anyone else does. And that makes it a very easy conversation for us to have. So if you look at the kind of way we might deploy this, you might have a main data center site, and you could put 2 system servers in, running in active, passive mode. So the active one's running everything, the passive one's monitoring it, but being updated real time. If the active system fails or the health routines tell the passive system to shut it down, automatic switch over. Call servers are now talking to the one that just took over. You don't drop calls in progress. Hopefully some alarms go off. But you actually can have full redundancy at the system server level with automatic failover. And then if you have another site that's actually also your backup data center, in this case I just use site 4, you can put a system server, same thing. It's in passive mode. It's being actively updated real time. And if you lose your main site, that one takes over and contacts all the call servers it can find, and you're in business. So everything from a single system server to full redundancy on site with automatic failover out to full geographic redundancy. And these systems are very easy to deploy, very easy to test, very easy to maintain. If we look at the toolkit we have when we go to centralize the organization, today we can support up to 750 ports, which is about 40,000 users. We have people actually doing more than that. It depends on the traffic patterns. We don't license voicemail users, which means you can put as many on there as will work with the number of ports you have. Each single call server can have 144 ports. Unless it's equipped with the full speech rec on the ASR engine, then it only does 96 ports. Still not much of a limitation for anyone. And then each system can connect to up to 10 different types of PBXs. Not 10 PBXs. We actually have a number of CX systems supporting over 60 PBXs, but 10 different types. So if I have 5 Avaya communications managers, that's one type. Now I have 9 types left. I have 4 CS1000s that I'm going to use SIP on. There's a second type. So the number of systems and the complexity of the environment that we can handle means there just isn't a customer that we're going to walk into where we have to say, gee, sorry, we can't do that. Our competition, they don't have this. They don't have 700 plus ports. They don't have 20 active server elements. The one that has the most only has 3. They license such you have to pay for voicemail users. They don't have automatic failover necessarily. They don't have geo-redundancy. We're in a better position to have this discussion with you about centralization, not just because we can handle everything you have out there, but because the architecture choices that you'll have will let you match what you're looking for. What is your corporate policy? What's mission critical? What has to be in your geo-redundant data center? All of those issues we can easily address. If you look at one of our customers, and we have lots of customer references you can contact offline, you can contact us, and we'll give you that info at the end of the presentation. And we can find you a reference, more than one, in your location, in your industry, in your size. Because, like I say, we've been doing this a long time. This happens to be UMass Amherst, which was one of those companies that did an extremely thorough job at doing the research up front. They did an RFI and an RFP, and they were very, very strong in the researching piece, which we love because we come across very good in that. They were a large enterprise. They had mixed needs. They had both faculty, staff members, and some of the students that had to be on the system. The system, when they started, was very much dispersed. They had different buildings with different phone systems. They were kind of centralized on a legacy Octel system, but they had a lot of needs that are unique. And these needs are, every time we talk to an enterprise customer, we come up with something new. When we did UPMC, they had specific needs for what had to be in a hospital and what had to be in the data center. When we did UCLA, they were putting in a new hospital, and they had requirements they felt with HIPAA that meant certain components had to be in certain locations. So our flexibility for meeting what those needs are is one of the reasons we do so well. We do well in the legacy voicemail replacement market anyway, because we have all the legacy features, and we also do well in this market because typically centralization is replacing a legacy voicemail system, but also the enterprise architecture needs are much higher than the average replacement, and we just have the tools to cover that. So if we look at kind of how our systems go out the door, very often people want to replace their legacy voicemail and call processing system. And we'll get a call quite often that says, come talk to us, but be aware up front. All we want is voicemail and automated attendant. We'll probably want something down the road, but we're really not interested in that right now. And we can go make a presentation that talks about how well we can do that piece. And if they want to talk about anything else, fine. In truth, it's rare for us to sell a system, to go through this process where the customer learns about our product, where they don't add something in the mobility category. It might be unified messaging, it might be a speech rec automated attendant, it might be any number of these pieces, but almost always there'll be a little more than just the voicemail piece. Because as they look at the product and realize this is one product, we're not saying buy 3 more servers to do this function. This is, yes, there's a license charge, but turn it on and that equipment you're investing in today now gets leveraged in many, many more ways. This is true unified communication. And as I said, some portion of them, somewhere around 20%, somewhere along the way will say, hey, I have a problem. I have a mailbox type that I have to monitor, and I have to have people, and if they don't respond to this particular caliber of message in a specific time, there are issues involved. In the UK, a lot of the councils, the government councils, their social services people's mailboxes, there were some incidents over there that caused some problems, so they now have very strict requirements for how they monitor those mailboxes. So it was very easy to write a program that monitors those specific mailboxes and then escalates them as required. So that kind of additional functionality will pop up in the larger enterprises as well. But if you look at the typical stack is we will always be involved because of the call processing and voice piece. Very often, I would say 80% of our systems, maybe higher than that, will include unified messaging. That's not really a new thing in the market. It's new for a lot of customers. And the productivity gains are just so obvious when you look at it. And the IT people, they understand what this technology is. They're much more comfortable with it. And then the speech pieces and the find me, follow me pieces. Less of those, but those are getting more and more popular as well. I said we've been doing this a while, and we have the customers to prove it. This is a great slide from Marketing's point of view because it gives us a sense of presence in the market. If you look at these names, you will find names there you recognize in your industry, in your area. And if not, call us. This is just as many as we can fit on a slide, basically. And every one of these is different. Every implementation has a different architecture. They had a different set of needs. Their sizes are different. So we pride ourselves in being able to meet whatever the customer wants in the way of architecture and functionality. And if you go back afterwards, talk to our customers, which you can do with references and which we do on a regular basis, and say, so, why did you end up going with AVST? These are the categories that we'll hear most often. The things that we did better than whoever the competition was, or the things that we did that could just better meet the customer's needs. We were more flexible. We had the scalability. We covered their mobile devices better. Going in, our system was going to be less servers and easier to maintain. All of those kind of things will be a basic part of why customers went with us, not just with centralization, although it certainly holds true with that, but in general. So if you're looking at centralizing, the more complex your environment, the better off you'll be when you talk to us because of the flexibility we have. But whatever you're doing in the way of voice messaging, unified messaging, call processing, and the UC applications, the find me, follow me, personal assistant type thing, I think it's worth spending a little time talking to one of our people. And you can do a little of that right now, because now we'll take some questions.
Great. Thanks, Neil. So we do have a few questions coming in. Before I start that, though, just want to give you a quick reminder. If you joined after the introduction when we opened, we did record this, so we'll send you a link to the recording as soon as it's available online. And in addition, look for an email from us later today with a link to the slides. If you're looking for the place to type in the questions, use that orange arrow in the upper right corner, and you'll find the question box toward the bottom there once you expand that window. So, Neil, the first question is, how does never fail affect your example you presented?
So when I tend to do these higher-level presentations, I don't call out the specific components. But when I showed you multiple system servers, what we actually do, what we want, what everybody wants, right, is if I lose a complete component, let me have another component waiting in the wings. So there's a number of ways you approach that. As a software company, of course, you do a buy versus build analysis to how you can get there. And when we did that, we found a company called Neverfail. Neverfail writes synchronization software. This isn't a product where you go get and then just install it and it synchronizes your servers. This was a process where Neverfail engineers came to our labs for months, we went to their labs for months, and we ended up with this very complex list of things. So what Neverfail is going to do, a number of things, it's going to monitor everything written to the hard drive on the system server, the active system server, and it knows of those pieces of information, which ones do I have to take right now real time and put them on the backup passive system server. So what it is software running on all of our system servers that does that synchronization. And they don't just do it for us. RightFax uses it. A lot of people use it. They have a version for Exchange. Probably one of the most interesting ones is if you're a VM warehouse and you have the control center, cCenter, and everything in your VMware organization is redundant. The way you make that control center redundant involves using Neverfail software. So these are experts in that area. So sometimes you'll see pictures that show a system server and a Neverfail server sitting next to it. That's really not accurate. What we have are multiple system servers with the Neverfail software running on top of all of them, keeping them all in sync. And they have years and years of doing this, and we can once again give you lots and lots of references.
Okay, thanks. Next question, can you connect an on-premise Octel-based environment with Office 365 Exchange for voicemail?
Yeah, so we could put so first of all, we connect with Office 365. We use their web services piece. So you just, at whatever location was appropriate, you'd take that system and you'd point it out and you'd have that. Now, the Octel system is a voice message. So when you say, can we connect it, what we would do would be replace the Octel. So I'm not sure what functionality you would like to connect. We can network our systems to an Octel, so you can exchange messages and functionality like that. This is the kind of question where probably what you want to do is contact us offline, and we can actually go through the details of what architecture you have and what you're trying to get to.
Okay, we'll make sure to get that person connected with the resource here for more information. Next question, what about virtualization?
Yeah, it's funny that we don't cover that in this. This is probably one of those presentations where we should have a slide. We fully support VMware, so you can virtualize everything we have, the call servers, the system server, multiple system servers using Neverfail, all of that supported. We support snapshots, vMotion, all of those kind of features, and we can send you a document that talks about all of that. And we have an interesting mix of people who if we have 3 enterprises and they're all going to kind of end up with the same components from our side, and all of them are using VMware, they'll all choose a slightly different way to implement it. They're looking for slightly different things. But in our case, you can actually go out to the VMware site, go to the VMware Ready page, and you'll see not only do we work, but we're fully certified to work on the VMware product.
Okay, next question. You'll love this one, Neil, because it's an opinion question. How do you see Coca-Cola's move to decommission their voicemail? Is this the wave of the future or a one-off?
Yeah, this is interesting, and of course, lots and lots of discussion about this. Now, you can go back and see the way voicemail has changed. If you go back to when I got in the industry, voicemail was very important, and it was a messaging tool. Not only did it answer my phone for me, but if I couldn't get a hold of you, I would call into voicemail, log into my mailbox, and send you a message. That was a communications tool. That's really not what voicemail is right now. So voicemail is much more of a call answering, a missed call notification system. And even the voice messages you get, half of them say, hey, John, give me a call when you get a chance. So no one can argue that the role of voicemail has changed and even diminished in some senses. And yes, we've seen people use less and less of the voicemail. The number of ports they need go down. Now, keep in mind, voicemail is actually a very small part of what our server does. We determined a long time ago that we're really good at taking messages, but how much better would it be if we could connect more calls? So you'll find our system is loaded with features that say, if you want to receive a phone call, we'll give you the technology to see that it gets to you. And then if not, we'll gladly take a voice message. Now, in Coca-Cola's case, it's going to be very interesting to watch because we see people come in and do a clean sweep. Yes, I'm coming in, I'm going to fix all these things, and I'm going to do this. It doesn't make sense. Now, what triggered this was, they had a legacy system they had to deal with, and the costs, they'd let it go a long time. The costs were going to be very high. And, they're saying, yes, we don't need this. All the young people are using social media, blah, blah, blah. I sit in meetings all the time where we're proposing systems to people, enterprises like Coca-Cola's size, and the people sitting in those enterprises, they're not really big on Twitter and Facebook. What's going to happen, my guess, is a very angry customer of some kind is going to call and not be able to leave a message for someone, and you will see them reinstalling some form, might be a limited form, but some form of voice messaging. When you call somebody, it's very frustrating if you can't do anything, if it just rings and rings and rings. We all know that feeling. Now, you can say, yes, we're going to move everybody to their voicemail on their mobile devices, but then you're going to have all these issues, and we've looked at a couple of them, like how teams work together and things like that, where people may not want to pay for it. People may think it's less important than it was. I don't really think you're going to see major corporations say, oh, Coca-Cola did it, let's get rid of our voicemail. I could be wrong. We'll just have to watch and see.
Okay, thanks, Neil. So it looks like that actually wraps up the questions for today. If you at any time have a question you didn't think of or you think of something after, you're welcome to email us at info@avst.com. We will make sure that gets answered and gets routed to the correct person. And just want to thank everyone for joining us, and I will let Neil wrap us up.
Sure. I just, I kind of end this the same way I started. I want to thank you for coming. I know it's difficult. Carve time out of your day, and we try and make these short and very focused. Please give us feedback. Tell us if we're not meeting the needs, if you want to see something different, you want more detail, less detail, other topics. Believe me, that info@avst.com is closely monitored, and it has a direct effect on this kind of effort. If we're going to spend the money putting these on, we want to make sure we're giving these people who are coming to them the content they want. So thank you very much.
All right. Have a great day, everyone.